What will define the WNBA's next 5 years is if these new owners, if they truly believe in the product. So the WNBA essentially was treated like it had a ceiling so early on rather than a growth property.
Is the WNBA as strong as it's ever been, or is it as fragile as it could be?
WNBA is still relatively fragile.
Where are we then at with the CBA?
They have 3 mouths to feed. Ownership is very complicated in the WNBA. This structure does not exist in the NBA.
It's not just good salaries, it's livable salaries. And people don't understand that.
If the WNBA were not to have a season, it would benefit all of those other global leagues.
What defines the WNBA's next 5 years?
Oh, don't get me started with them.
Is this the strongest the WNBA has ever been, or the most fragile? Record attendances, multi-million-dollar franchise values, expansion momentum, global coverage. But beneath that growth, a looming CBA negotiation, emerging global leagues, shifting player leverage, ownership strategies under pressure, and a media ecosystem that's louder and more polarized than ever. Today, on The Sixth Woman, we go inside the real state of play. Straight out of New York, we're joined by one of the sharpest voices covering the league, host of the 9 Sports podcast Women's Basketball Edition, and WNBA writer at NBC Sports. This is Jackie Powell. This is the WNBA Unpacked.
Maybe just to start off with, Jackie, sort of big picture-wise, is the WNBA as strong as it's ever been, or is it as fragile as it could be given the situation it finds itself in at the moment?
That's a great question for many reasons. I think if we were to look at the definitions of the words that you two have been using, I think you would say that the WNBA is the strongest it's ever been. And that's because you think about the profitability and the money that's coming in. In the league's almost 30-year history, it hasn't brought in money like it is right now. And this isn't just because of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and their sheer existence. It's because finally our media and marketing machine, in addition to decision makers actually saying yes or begging others to say yes to lifting up women's basketball, is why it's the strongest it has ever been. And so I like to use a metaphor. I love pop music, so this is sort of how I like to describe this. So the WNBA essentially was treated like it had a ceiling so early on rather than a growth property. Because for so long, the idea of the W was, oh, it's the right thing to do, rather than this product has so much potential, let's invest. Absolutely. So just imagine if the Beatles just weren't allowed to play on the Ed Sullivan Show. Like, people just said, no, you can't do this. That was a performance that launched the Beatles as global superstars. What if Taylor Swift was told she couldn't perform at Stagecoach, but had to stick to tiny festivals people hadn't heard of, instead of being able to play on a larger stage when she was first starting out? What about, like, Beyonce? When, even before she started putting out her own music as Beyonce, what if she was called a flop after Destiny's Child became their own, or Destiny's Child broke up and Beyonce became a solo artist? That is how the WNBA was treated for so long.
Great analogies. Tony, do you actually know those last 2 artists?
Thank you.
Okay,
yes, and I've got some sense, but we might have to delve into it a bit more. Let me get my phone out.
Continue.
But also, I do think the two of you are right. There is an argument to say that the WNBA is still relatively fragile. Although I will say it is not as fragile as it was in 2018 in the pre-Kathy Engelbert years. And Kathy Engelbert is the current and first commissioner of the WNBA. And I've seen internal documents that show that in the, pre-pandemic 2019 year, the WNBA brought in around $102 million in revenue. And now here we are in 2026, and there's an estimation that the league brought in over $300 million in 2025. So that sort of gives you a sense of the fact that there's a lot of growth, but if that growth were to just stop and halt, then, that would mark the first time in maybe 7 years that the league wasn't growing. That would mean the league would take a step back. And any time a professional women's sports league takes a step back, the criticism is just on another level.
It's deafening.
Yes. Nailed it.
Yeah.
That's a perfect word to use.
So where are we then at with the CBA? Because there's an argument to say there's no deadline until May the 8th, which is, the first
start
game
of the new season.
Yeah, and maybe you work back from that and you get to the draft and the expansion draft, and there's this sequence of events. But equally, we're now about to enter into March, and there's still a gap, a substantial gap, it appears, in money terms. Where do you see we're at in the not so much the process, but in the thinking of both sides?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I mean, I think, let me start with the league and why the league is where they are. And I think this is a conversation that isn't being held as much as it could be, which is why I think it's a good idea to talk about it here. From the league's perspective, they have 3 mouths to feed when it comes to allocating money that comes from this new deal. And so ownership is very complicated in the WNBA. The actual WNBA team owners, they only make 42% of what comes into the league. Then you have another 42% group. Those are the NBA owners. And mind you, these are owners that may not like the WNBA, may not think that it's worth anything. And then, and an example of that is the owner of the New York Knicks, James Dolan, is one of those folks who really...
It's quite outspoken about that.
Correct. Thank you. That is a great euphemism to insert there.
Well, he's not a believer.
Correct. Correct. And then you have this interesting 16%, which is, this is a group that has business leaders, it has people in politics. For instance, Condoleezza Rice is someone in this group. You have former NBA and WNBA players that are in this group. This is the 16% that participated in a capital raise in 2022. And the reason that was done was because the WNBA's league office, they did not have the human capital that they needed to operate as a professional sports league in the United States. So I talked about the fact that the marketing and media apparatus is at a different spot than it was years ago. I mean, you take a look at the human capital that existed at the league office. I think Kathy Engelbert says there was maybe, I don't know, less than 5 people working on WNBA marketing. And now you have over 24. So stuff like that matters, and you need money to be able to have, the sharpest minds working on how to grow this league. And the WNBA just did not have that for I want to say, I don't know, like at least 22 years of its 30-year existence.
Majority of its existence.
So I'm laying all of this out because I want people to understand that it is much more complicated than any other labor discussion in other professional sports leagues. This structure does not exist in the NBA. This structure does not exist in Major League Baseball. You do not have so many groups to feed. And what ends up happening is you have these NBA owners in their 42% that because they don't care and value the WNBA and they don't look at it as a growth asset, they whine and they say, well, we've lost money on this league for so many years. And they put pressure on the NBA league office and the WNBA league office so that they are getting the money that they believe they deserve because they have been supporting the WNBA since day one, if they wanted to or if they didn't. And for these people, it's mostly they didn't want to. And it was Adam Stern that sort of, convinced them to do this. And so it's really hard for a league when they have a group of shareholders that don't wholeheartedly believe in the product. And that has to be some of the root of this tension that exists. So I'm assuming now you want to hear a little bit more about the players' side and why.
I think so, because I think as an intro to that for you, the fans' view is we can understand and explain the structures and the impacts and so on, but the fan doesn't necessarily absorb all of that. So they look at the players and they may well support, and there is certainly a lot of support, but labour disputes have a tension in them if you look at the history of labour disputes, particularly in sports.
Fans look at entertainment and they look at skill level.
Yeah. So interested probably in the players, but I'm also interested in what you're sensing from the fans at the moment.
Wow. Okay. So the reason why the players are where they are is because in the previous CBA, they experienced this unique shift in what some of us referred to as the 2024 women's basketball boom, when Caitlin and Angel came into the league guns a-blazing. And it just changed so much of the business calculus throughout the league ecosystem so quickly. And so players sort of were like, well, wait a minute, if the league is able to earn so much more money so quickly, then players should be as well. And so they felt like in the current CBA / the previous one, that during the boom year of 2024, the players were not able to reap the benefits that they should have. And so the reason that they are being really hard-nosed when it comes to revenue sharing is because they don't want to be in a situation like that again, especially when we know that there is a huge media rights deal that is on the way. And the media rights deals are the lifeblood of a league and its players. It gives both groups so much more access to money. And so I think that's where a lot of the tension from the player side comes in. They saw how quickly things were growing and they were like, we're getting gypped here.
How can we not able to feel that growth as well? I mean, I think more often than not, we always touch on the Angel Reese and the Caitlin Clark, regardless of it being a rivalry. It was just that it was that era. It was the time of their arrival that globally the rise of the game has been felt in a way that hasn't been felt to this level in so long, regardless of the rivalry, their skill level, their entertainment. just coming out of college and the excitement of college basketball in that same capacity as well. The viewership of the finals, the women's finals in NCAA, all of that all at once bubbling over, and the players sitting there. I can't imagine how it would have felt to sit there and go, I'm not going to get anything out of this. Everyone else is going to pocket out of this, but I'm not going to get anything out of this. And if I don't make a stand now, and they didn't have those T-shirts to pay us what we owe us, and didn't have that movement, we wouldn't be sitting where we're sitting right now. I genuinely think we'd be still sitting back there, everyone twiddling their thumbs, just being upset that they're not seeing any change.
Yeah, I think you communicate there exactly how a lot of the players felt during that 2024 season in the lead up to the opt-out of the current CBA, which, for those listening, the Players Association, they opted out essentially right after the 2024 WNBA Finals. And so, but Tony, I think you did ask about the fans and how they're feeling. And it's a mixed bag. I think all fans want a season, but I think more fans than you'd think are sympathetic toward the players' side. And I think the reason we have that is because for so long, WNBA players were not making livable salaries. And
say that part again, because it's literally that. It's not just good salaries, it's livable salaries. And people don't understand that.
Yes. And part of the issue that I think both sides are facing right now is the league's proposal essentially will give close to all players, including those that are on developmental roster spots, which that is a new quirk that has been reported out, which I could talk for 50 minutes on a separate show about how life-changing that new wrinkle developmental players will be for the WNBA. But I digress. A lot of what the league is proposing will guarantee a livable wage and will guarantee just money that players haven't been able to make in the United States ever. Well, actually, if you've played in Unrivaled in the United States, those contracts...
That's only that level of money is only recent in the last few years.
Correct. Mm-hmm. So I think that's sort of why there is much more fan support on the players' side. And that's not the situation that fans are thrown into when there are labor disputes in other men's pro leagues, because it's like, well, LeBron James makes millions and millions. How can we as fans sympathize with that? And in the WNBA, it's a completely different equation.
Well, I think my sense of the fans as well, not all the fans of women's basketball, but many are drawn into the strength of the social change that women's basketball in the WNBA reflects. So I think there's an element in that fan reaction as well that comes from, this is about social change. It's not just about professional basketball. And I think some of the empathy comes from that. My own sense is, though, that the disappointment of losing an entire season for all of the parties you just referred to, owners, players and fans, would be, well, the collateral effect of that is hard to imagine until we go through it. And particularly for a league that is still not at a fledgling stage, because it's been around for 30 years, but to your point, the growth has been exponential in the last, let's say, 2 years. And so I was interested in, let's assume there's an extended breakdown and, a shortened season or whatever, or no season. What do you what's one of the things we've been reflecting on a lot in the last little while is the flow-on effect of these things to not just the WNBA, to the other leagues that have emerged. Unrivaled, obviously, has got a very high-profile Project B, which has sort of been announced, but hasn't really been a lot come out in the last 4 to 6 weeks. But the other international leagues as well, Europe, China, Australia, because there is a trickle-down effect of what happens, of uncertainty. And I'm just interested whether that flow-on effect is in any of the dialogue that you're hearing or conversations you're hearing in the United States.
I mean, that's a great point that I don't think has been spoken about that much in the media discourse community in the United States. I mean, you know, I often like to compare the basketball world to the political global world. I think there are a lot of parallels. You know, I think when it comes to how the different basketball federations interact, it's almost very similar to how different governments around the world interact with one another. And if the WNBA were not to have a season, it would benefit all of those other global leagues. And I mean, it would almost mirror what's going on in our world right now, where the United States sort of has become a, how do I put this? A bit of a, I don't know if I want to say a laughing stock. I don't know if I want to say
it's not representing the strength of the greatest country in the world slogan that maybe that people are used to hearing and seeing. And I mean, even from our end, we hear the jokes and things like maybe that America's become the third world country without going to that extreme. But it is politically that's. So you see the strengths in other countries, even if you talk about, without going too political, with the way things have gone with tariffs. So it's not yet when as America shifts and isn't seen as strong as it has been in the past, it gives opportunity for other countries to rise and show their strength and show their cards.
Now, the good news is we're not a political podcast.
No,
so therefore
but that connects to other leagues.
But I think it is an interest that you touched on the Jackie, and the benefit that, or sorry, the impact, positive, negative, that will happen to other leagues with whatever happens in the next little while in the WNBA CBA. So one of the things that's intrigued me is you've got the three leading voices of the Players Association, being Nafisa, Brianna, and Neckar, who are equity owners in other leagues. And again, I'm not so much making a comment on that as much as I'm interested, again, is that part of the dialogue or is that part of the pressure point that is being used within this CBA process?
So that is such a fascinating can of worms. I think where I want to start with that is those three in particular have used their affiliations to those other respective leagues to put pressure on the WNBA.
Yeah.
They've all admitted that.
Yep.
But at the same time, I think there's an argument to be made that the way in which they've communicated that pressure has backfired. And I think for Unrivaled in particular, there are many examples of this. And I think what has become clear to me has been looking at how the WNBA has been supporting Athletes Unlimited, which is a winter off-season league for WNBA players, but it doesn't pay as much as Unrivaled. It takes place in Nashville. It's only for a month. It is sometimes it can be viewed as a developmental league where fringe players come and they try to impress WNBA scouts. And so that league, has been cross-branded with the WNBA.
Yeah, I didn't realize that the WNBA, I saw they show it on the WNBA app, but I didn't realize the WNBA had done that proactively.
Yes, and so meanwhile, while Unrivaled has their own media rights deal with TNT, in year one, the WNBA would promote that Unrivaled was happening on its channels. And that helped the league. That helped get that viewership up. And so we're talking about, there's been a lot of narratives about Unrivaled's, dip in ratings. And so part of it is in a sophomore season, when you're past the 1-year novelty, of course that's going to happen. But you cannot understate the influence that the WNBA has when it attaches itself to something. And so the fact that the WNBA has just chosen to not really say anything about Unrivaled, that is harming the league. And you've seen, or maybe some of you have heard, Unrivaled's president, which is Alex Boesel, he is the husband of Nafisa Collier. He has been talking about, as of late, how much he believes a CBA getting done will benefit Unrivaled. And it's for the very reason that I was just saying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I can just touch on, I guess, we've just talked about expansion. Do you think then at this time that expansion is the right time? Is it too fast? Does it dilute the competitive strength short term?
That's a good question. I think the roster expansion is, oh my God, such a long time coming because you would just see injury after injury, and it would be so hard to get players sometimes off the street to help replace those that were injured. When it comes to across the country, it's hard for me to tell because if you look at the inception of the WNBA, it expanded so quickly. And so I tend to think, okay, are we repeating history with this? Is the league going to expand too quickly again? And then because that happened, there will be some sort of financial recession, and then you'll have all of these owners get scared and not want to be investing anymore. That's a fear because it has happened before. But then maybe on the other end, maybe there shouldn't be a fear because you actually have owners this time that don't just see the product as the right thing to do. They see it as a growing business, and they see it as a moneymaker, and they see it as something that can get butts into seats. And that wasn't always the mindset. And then when you also have media rights deals that are valuing this product more properly and aren't treating it like women's hockey was treated by, sorry to get political again, but I can't help it.
It's hard not to sometimes.
Well, it's also potentially lead you down the path of, go back to where you started the conversation around the structure of the WNBA ownership, right, the different parts of that.
Yeah.
The ultimate evolution will be to have WNBA league and teams owned by people who see it core to their business. And so it may actually lead to, some of this shifting may lead to actually a shift out or a change in ownership, not necessarily in the next 12 months, but let's say in the next 5 years, where the capital base is actually focused on the sole product of the WNBA rather than being confluenced with this NBA piece is complicated. Yeah, my own view is it's complicated in any sport where the men's franchise is owned by the women's. The men's and women's franchise of that club are owned by the same owners. You tend to see, particularly if the men's franchise has been well established before the women's franchise, fans don't necessarily follow both. That's not how fans think necessarily. So to circle back, I think this question around ownership right back at the start is one of the fundamental structural flaws within the WNBA, and something has to be answered in the next 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, there was a report from a colleague of mine, Annie Costable at Front Office Sports, and she does fantastic work. And essentially her report was that the WNBA is looking at potentially buying back the 16% that it sold off to that capital raise investors group. And so that sort of dovetails well with what you're saying there, Tony, which is, okay, is there a way to make this complex piece of the pie a little bit less complicated? So that could be something down the road, although I think it's also worth considering the fact that the 3 expansion teams that are coming in 2028, 2029, and 2030 in Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia, those ownership groups all have NBA ties.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Yep.
And that, I mean, again, it's sort of like history is cycling back. At the beginning of the WNBA's existence, all the teams were owned by NBA owners. And so we're seeing that happen once again.
But I suppose what your journey is such an interesting one in terms of your career, and we'd like to delve a little bit into that as we close off our podcast, and we're going to do that in a bit of a fun way. We do say these are one-word answers, but they don't always necessarily become one-word answers.
Depends how excited we are and how much leniency Tony gives.
So I'm sort of the one who tries to keep us to time, and Beza sort of takes us wherever your answer takes us. So I'm going to kick off with the first question, and we'll try to keep it moving, but we'll give you a little bit of leeway. You've been very generous with your time, so if it's 1 word, 2 words. So first one, your favourite player to watch in the WNBA?
Oh, this question kills me almost every time. I'll just say the first one that comes to mind. I don't think it's my favorite necessarily. Like, I think my favorite could change. But with Kelsey Mitchell... Huh?
In this moment.
In this moment in time, Kelsey Mitchell is someone who is so entertaining to watch, is so captivating to watch because of her speed, because of her creation abilities. You know, she's driving, making these incredible shots.
Just so you know, the reason why this might actually be hard to be one-word answers is because she's a journalist. Players and coaches are happy to give one-word answers. Journalists have stories in their heads.
Let's go to the next question.
Most interesting player to interview in the WNBA?
Marina Mabrey.
Okay.
Who played out here for a year in Perth, left a trail of interest and entertainment, let's call it that, for the season. She was just fantastic in playing for Perth in the WNBL. At the same time, she played, teammate in that year was Jackie Young. The two of them in the same team with Sammy Whitcomb. So how's that for a backcourt? Your favourite Australian player?
Rebecca Allen.
Have you met Lady Gaga?
Oh my God. I wish. Oh my God.
So the background of this is that Jackie worked for about 3 years or contributed to the Born This Way Foundation in New York. So we just wanted to know whether you actually got to meet her.
No, I wish.
Oh, look at that devastation.
But I wrote to her.
You wrote to her? Did she write back?
No, but she has it in a book somewhere where all of the volunteers and employees wrote notes to her, and I was told that my note went directly to her.
All right. Well, Lady Gaga, if you ever see this, you never know. Listen, your girl needs a response.
Now, this one's a little bit from way back in your background, but you interned in UK politics with one of the legendary women of the Labour Party in the UK, Harriet Harman, who retired just 2 years ago at the winning election. Just interested in how that experience shaped the way you think about women's basketball and cover it.
That's not a one-word answer.
That's fair enough.
You can answer with a few more words.
She's a sharp journo.
Well, we've spoken about globalization a lot during this show and the idea of how different countries interact with one another. And when I worked in that constituency office, it actually tested my interviewing skills, because one of my duties was to answer the phone when constituents, and Harriet's constituency, it was mostly immigrants from different countries around the world. And it was during a time, well, we also live in that time right now, but when I was working in the UK, it was the beginning of this anti-immigration sentiment around the world. And so I think it really framed my global perspective. It framed how I view diversity and difference around the world. And I mean, it gave me more empathy whenever I talk to players and coaches and people that may have some issue underneath that we don't always know about. So if that answers the question.
It's a beautiful answer.
You have a very eloquent way of responding. So that was really beautiful.
Some of us have vaped around little brothers and sisters. These kids could be breathing toxic chemicals without them even knowing. I don't think it's worth it vaping at all.
Oh,
This one should hopefully be a one-word answer, but it's also one that I think is a really important question that we should ask every time. What's one media voice more people should follow in women's basketball?
Other than Jackie Powell.
Oh, I'd never say myself, which is probably a bad thing, but that's just me. You said women's basketball generally?
Yeah. One voice that's out there, that's talking about the space, talking about the game, that people should follow, should listen to.
If you all like scouting and prospects and the draft, I'm going to say Emily Adler. She does excellent scouting work and has such a holistic view of the history of the WNBA and how she really thinks about how the game itself has evolved.
That's a new one for me. I'll definitely look that one up. Tony, do you want to wrap this up with the last question?
Yeah, just in one sentence, what defines the WNBA's next 5 years?
Okay, I've got something. What will define the WNBA's next 5 years is if these new owners that come on board are consistent in the arguments that they made to land expansion teams. And what I mean by that is that these ownership groups do not repeat the earlier mistakes that were made at the beginning of the league's history. So if those ownership groups stick to their word, if they truly believe in the product and are ready for when there might be some bumps in the road, that will define the future of the WNBA.
Well, thank you, Jackie. Thank you.
Awesome.
It's, the conversation we're looking to have are exactly these type, which is sort of sharp and wise and forward-looking. Sometimes a bit of fun. Sometimes more than one-word answers, which is what the world we live in is a little more complicated than one-word answers. We really appreciate your time, and we really look forward to staying in touch. And we're hoping we might be in Berlin, so maybe you might be there too, and we might get to meet in person.
I would love if I could be in Berlin, but I'd have to find the funding for that.
Come on, surely Ellie the elephant needs an assistant.
That would be quite unethical.
It would be. Hey, thank you so much for your time. It's just been
terrific. We appreciate you. Honestly, you've got such a unique perspective, and it's just so nice to hear from someone on the other side of the world in such a I'll say privileged position, in the sense that you get to speak so intelligently and with so much insight on a topic that's so important. So thank you for your work, and we'll continue to follow you.
That was really kind. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jackie. Well, Tony, that's it. What an awesome episode. That was just so interesting and really insightful. And I want to make sure before we finish off that our viewers know that the Sideline documentary series that was done about the Boomers is actually going to be available on our YouTube. It's going to be cut up into shorter episodes, but that'll be available through all of March. So a really powerful and important docu-series, and I really encourage people to go watch that. As always, stay tuned to everything we're doing on the Sixth Women podcast, on our YouTube, on our Instagram, Spotify and Apple Podcasts, however you listen to us. And we'll see you next time.